We're going to get started in just a minute. Make sure you have a little drink. Hope you're all refreshed after the Poke Bowls. And this is going to be quite exciting. We've got an awesome stellar lineup for you. The chance to be able to learn about everything when you're building your project, from the legal side to the tax side, to the partnerships, to the marketing. It's going to be pretty awesome. And they're going to be rapid fire. So these are like 5-minute keynotes. They're going to go back to back to back. And so make sure that you're taking your notes on each one. It's going to be the great opportunity to learn a lot in one go. So hopefully your mind's on, the coffee's ready, and you're ready to rock and roll. So we're going to begin with Lisa when I click on this one properly. There we go. And we're going to start with Lisa. So give a round of applause.
Thanks, Captain. Hi, everybody. I'm here today to talk about crypto law and in particular to introduce a fantastic initiative that we've been collaborating on with SuperteamUK and with legal publisher LexisNexis. Crypto law has not got a great reputation for, or law in general, for being super exciting or one of maybe the most thing you want to focus on when you're building your project. We're here to prove you wrong and to prove that lawyers can be creative. So we're really excited to announce today that we have created a guide to help founders navigate their way through crypto law. There's lots of legal information out there if you like reading really, really technical stuff. So what we've done is break that down. We have engaged many of the finest legal minds in this area, including some who are in this room today and will be speaking later. And basically, we are going through a whole range of topics that may help accelerate projects through to their next level of growth. The guide's going to be freely available later, and we'll be making that accessible through the Superteam website. So what top things does the guide tell you about that you might need to know? I think, firstly, there's no silver bullet in the context of law. The space has moved on. Over the last few years. Many projects launched in years past with this view of kind of maybe doing a token for the purpose of fundraising. The guide sort of talks about, well, what next after that? As a global phenomenon, crypto clearly crosses lots of boundaries, and that's definitely something that many projects and builders really have to struggle with at the beginning, thinking about how do we launch just in one jurisdiction when we want to make something that's borderless, an absolute game changer, that's highly ambitious. So we kind of address that and provide a few strategies for building. So the first top tip is to think about building your ecosystem. A token, as Mo of Animoca Brand says in our guide, is about more than just fundraising. It's a product. It needs to be connected into a wider ecosystem. And you need to think about the utility that that product is giving to your users and really build the sort of technical infrastructure and social infrastructure and community around that to create something of enduring usefulness and utility over time. As part of that, clearly moving on beyond fundraising, there's new technology now, so we can reimagine, rethink what this product needs to do. And AI is a growing part of this ecosystem. There's new AI laws too, so we talk about that in the guide and about the convergence of blockchain and AI law being something to be aware of. So first tip for me is to build your product with an ecosystem in mind. Second thing, building on me saying, well, there's no silver bullets in this area, is to build with community. You're here in this accelerator today. There's an awful lot to know about, an awful lot to learn. I think accelerators are a really key component towards helping provide resources like this, connecting you with others who can really help you to sort of navigate some really tricky areas. One of those is obviously financial promotions. We do have a chapter in the guide that talks about the importance of that, being aware of the marketing elements of any kind of crypto asset. Hopefully, we'll see the UK realizing its ambitions in years to come around regulation of crypto assets. We've had a new crypto regulatory roadmap, which was announced just very recently in Tulip Siddique's Mansion House speech, announcing the UK's ambitions to create digital asset-friendly regulation by 2026. Proportionality is going to be a really key challenge, and many projects do struggle with marketing still. So see the guidance on financial promotions and maybe think about how you can connect with Superteam and other accelerators to get facts and circumstance specific guidance. And the last, I guess, shout out is just to kind of build a secure and data compliant product. If you stop risks from crystallizing, if you prevent harms from the get-go by using creative, tech-enabled ways to build compliance into your product, then that is a really good starting point and foundation for your project. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And then now, next up, we're going to have Omri from Outlier. Next stage, big round of applause.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Cap. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. So I've contributed as part of this project to the video game side of this guide. So effectively, what do Web3 project that want to develop and distribute, a Web3 game must take into account? So first of all, let me tell you that video games have been a huge part of my life. They've also been a big part in my decision of, becoming a blockchain lawyer. The story is long, but I'll keep it. We can talk about that another time or later. One aspect that is interesting when it comes to Web3 games is that crypto can really help the games industry beyond in-game economy. Normally, when we think about Web3 game, we think about in-game assets, or perhaps using tokens as part of video games to be able to extract value from the game, which is all good, and I think it has potential and it has legs. But it has the potential to contribute to the video game industry far beyond that. So if you think about fundraising, developing game is very expensive, and crypto has been demonstrated to be a tool potentially to raise funds to develop a project. This has happened across different creative industries. I'd say the most successful case is probably a film called Cayetita, where the director, Miguel Faust, was able to raise funds and release a movie that has won some awards as well, and is on Netflix. So the same can happen within video games, and again, also development. So you can secure talent, for example, by incentivizing through tokens, or by also getting the community to develop certain aspects of the game. DAOs can be very interesting as an alternative to EULA, or the constitution of a video game, which is the end user licensing agreement. So think about it like in the context of social networks. Who gets to decide who can access the game and who cannot access the game, for example, based on a behavioral code that the community intends to implement. So when you're looking at EULA, it's very centralized, the publisher decides that, but DAOs could allow players, community of players to decide when it comes to that. However, crypto, of course, brings also problems to solve, and king amongst all, I would say, is regulation, with no surprise whatsoever. And when it comes to regulation, you need to consider all regulation that applies to any Web3 project. So that includes anti-money laundering consideration, financial services consideration, like financial promotions, like Lucy was saying just a moment ago. But 1 + 1 when it comes to Web3 and games equal 4, because you're not actually looking at laws and regulation that applies to these different industries. As industries converge, so do area of law and regulation. In reality, they have a newborn child when it comes to regulation, which is gambling regulation. Because the moment you can extract value from a game, then you need to consider, at least in the UK, gambling laws and gambling regulations. Failing to do so, if you breach them, is a criminal offense and can result in fines and imprisonment. I mean, this is for the more severe cases. So why do we need to consider gambling regulation? Basically, it all revolves, when you look at the UK, if we're trying to simplify it, it all comes around to what is a prize. A prize is broadly defined as money or money's worth. Normally, if you look at Web2 games, so outside of the Web3 context, you can't really trade in-game items outside of the game environment. You can't extract and sell them. And even where you technically can, maybe but there is some marketplace like Steam that allows you to, then the term and condition will forbid you from doing that. Same goes for account sale and account sharing. So the moment you allow players to do that, the moment you allow players to extract money or something that could be worth money, then you need to start considering gambling regulation. The problem with gambling regulation is that they are extraterritorial, so they extend beyond the territory where you operate. So for example, if you are outside of the UK and you want to offer your game into the UK to UK players, then you would be captured. It's very difficult to comply with them, because if you do fall within the scope, it's very difficult for a video game studio, regardless of the fact that it's Web3, to comply with those requirements, because normally they are designed for a different type of businesses. gambling businesses. So the entire structure of the business is different, the costs for the licensing are insane, getting the license is extremely difficult. So what you really want to do, and that's the first tip I would say, is to design your game with regulation in mind, ideally to try and fall outside of it. And how do you do that? Well, if you want to create a Web3 games, then it's going to incorporate some form of crypto assets, whether NFTs, whether as in-game items, whether tokens, or some other type of crypto assets. So ultimately, you will have to speak with a lawyer, and I highly recommend that. But let's say you could start by this is the second tip, focusing on skills rather than chance. So normally when I used to be in private practice, now I'm at Outlier Ventures, which is a VC and Web3 accelerator. But when I was in private practice, a lot of clients would come to me and say, oh no, the process by which the prizes are allocated is function based on skills. But then there would be some randomness. Think about loot boxes, think about having a pool of 10 potential prizes and then getting one of those 10s at random. That's chance. Or think about Super Mario Kart, for example. Like Mario Kart, I'm sure that many of you are familiar. When you drive across the race, you get some randomized item. That's chance. So the best way I would say, like something easy to keep in mind, is if you repeat the game loop, meaning if you rerun this particular session a very high number of times, would the outcome be the same? So if I'm a very skilled player and I'm playing against someone that is less skilled than me, am I always going to win? If that's the case, then probably you're developing a game of skills. If that's not the case, then be careful because there might be an element of chance. And the Gambling Commission, which is the regulator here in the UK, is very clear. If your game contains an element of chance, no matter how small it is, it will be deemed as a game of chance and fall potentially within the scope of the gambling regulation. So please keep that in mind, skills over chance, even if chance can be exciting. And the third and last tip I would say is more of an observation, like working with different clients that have developed games. It's very easy, I feel, in Web3 to be drawn to this, want to give back to the community. And a lot of time that takes the form of financial incentives. It's very attractive for users, right? It's a no-brainer. If I can make money playing a game, why not? It sounds great. The problem is, in my experience, what I've noticed is that when you rely heavily on financial incentives, you tend to attract a community not of players, but of traders. And so that's not really something that you want, because the moment the economics do not work, you lose everyone. There is no one really there, or very few, to actually play the game. So even though it can be an appealing thought, that of focusing on financial incentive, if you play, I'm going to give you token, and it might give you the impression that you're building this great and big community that you can rely on, be very careful, because A, the community is probably not what you think. It's not solid. It's there for the moment because you're dealing with traders and not gamers. And B, you're opening yourself up to a lot of regulatory hurdles, because that's really when you're bringing in that financial element, that's when you're opening yourself up to a lot more problem. That's all for me. If you want to speak, I'm going to be around later today. Thanks in the meantime.
Use it for your
And next up, we're going to have PK from Gamma. For a big round of applause.
Hi. This one, okay. Hi everyone, and I think that's a great speech to carry on from, especially when speaking about community. So I'm Pavan Kaur, I go by PK because I have a street cred to uphold. So it's good to have a nickname. So just starting off very simply, what is a community? Community is the combination of your investors and commercial users. It's your largest stakeholder group. Oftentimes it isn't given the due care and attention that represents the fact of the matter. And it's also important to note that community management and growth are two very different facets of building your community and require separate skills, resources, and considerations. So what is community management? Community management is effectively treasury management, and it's also risk management. And this is why it is so important for you as a founder to consider it as part of your business. A risk-based approach is what I recommend is taken. And what that looks like is implementing various policies that your community management team can adhere to. What that creates is effectively a well-oiled cog as part of the machine that is your business. And you're effectively creating a high-functioning division within your business. So the aim as you can see, is to sort of champion your brand, to create a support system for your token holders. And of course, the business case is to obviously highlight to your community that you care about what you're building, and what that then can lead to is your token holders holding onto the token. So there is a real business case there, and that's how it feeds into treasury management. We also want them to be prepared for upcoming growth campaigns. Naturally, if you're announcing a large partnership or a media campaign, you may face a large influx of prospective token holders and investors into your community. Therefore, it's important that that team is well equipped. So that's another tip for you. So a little bit on community growth. I'm not going to give the full magic sauce, but just feeding onto influencers. As we know, that tends to be the favored mechanic used to, as part of a TGE. As we know, the FCA are starting to crack down on what they call finfluencers. They have an interesting term for them. And so it's now almost non-negotiable that you have to consider the reputational risk of engaging with them. So how do you consider that reputational risk? Well, you have to consider how relevant they are to your proposition, how inebriated are they into, let's say, the Solana ecosystem, how much do they believe in your project, and you may find that actually wanting to build a long-term relationship with your influencer actually helps build trust with your community because they see you actively engaging with, well-known people in the industry, and so on and so forth. Other means is through looking at sort of recent campaign success. Are there bots in their audience, or is it organic? And again, how inebriated are they into the ecosystem to actually understand the desires and wants of retail? And then just feeding onto the legal bit a little bit. It's important to engage with influencers that aren't there to shill your token, because again, the reputational risk, it's not worth it when you consider the incoming regulation and the frameworks right now. So again, engaging with influencers that have the desire to adhere to compliance, and so on and so forth, will actually help you mitigate that process as well. So again, tip number 3, a small group of high-value users trumps a large group of low-value users. And I think everyone in the room can agree that, in order to build a sustainable business, you really have to be looking at building your project with people that believe in what you're doing, and can actively contribute to your ecosystem. So I gave a little bit of the secret sauce, but for the rest of it, you'll have to download the playbook that will be out later today. So I'll hand it over to James, who's the lawyer in the team, to talk about the legal.
It's always good when you talk the lawyer in the team. It's like fall guy or person we're going to go to jail with. Great. Me, a lawyer, pick to say 1,000 words, but I like 1,000 words. But I'm limited to 3 points. So I'm going to go know yourself, know the limits, know the service providers. Know yourself. Are you a game? Are you a bank? Are you a DeFi platform? When you start off, work out what it is you really are, because that will determine your go-to-market, your risk appetite, where you want to go next. Video games, and some of my clients might shoot me for saying this, do not tend to last 50, 60, 80 years. People get bored. A more short-termist approach can make sense. If you're creating financial products, like a bank, you've got a longer time horizon. You've also got a different metrics in terms of how you're going to finance, the nature of the audience you want to go to. Brings us to point number 2, knowing your limits. So for example, if you know that you've got small resources, and you tell me you're going to take on the entire world, I will tell you to watch the world's first documentary on this, Star Wars. In Star Wars, you will notice there are many galaxies. There are many people running around the galaxy. This is true, glorious decentralization at its best. Here, today, we are limited on one country, one Earth, one group of people interested in Web3. So, unfortunately, we are actually steadily becoming more and more centralized. And then you go, all right, I'm going to do every country in the world. I've done this once from a guy. I love him. His legal bill was awesome. He will go to lawyer heaven. No one else is joining him. So, Uzbekistan, Kosovo, really? These are your top priorities? This is where we're starting? No. All right. What if, where are you actually based? Where is your marketing going? Where is your marketing spend going? If you spend a fortune doing marketing in Europe, why are we worried about what's going on in the US? Do you really want the US? You might. When do you want the US? And then roll it over. Nobody gets anywhere by doing everything at once. So start with one jurisdiction, go to the next jurisdiction, go to the next jurisdiction, and slowly build up. And this is going to take me to point number 3. Know your service providers. A number of times I've dealt with people who've been royally mugged, with people who turn up and they go, this is fascinating, this is brilliant, this is wonderful. And you go, have you ever done this before? Nope. And you're going, great, so I'm the fool guy. Don't be the fool guy. Work out whether they've done it before. Work out how to bring down the cost. For example, Europe at the moment is going to have MiCA. The cost of going for a full MiCA license, ballpark, 500,000 euros. Your lawyers love you. We'll write you a really nice Christmas card for that one. You could white label it, do it for 10,000 euros. Your lawyers like you a lot less, but you have just saved 490,000 euros. So think about that when you move forward. Who are the right people to go through it with? They are providers. They're the hired help. You can remove the hired help, change them, do what is right for the business. You've got to focus it very much from your perspective, which brings you all the way back to the glorious point number 1. Know yourself. If you've got 200 million quid in the room, I love you, we'll take over the world, brilliant. If you've got 50 quid, that's cool, we're going to have to make some compromises. So the 3 things go together, but think about it, and then think about it from the start as well. Have a full-on game plan as to how you want to start off, where you want to go next, where you want to go in 5 years, and how you wish to develop over time. And if you do that, you've got to have a well-thought-out plan, and you'll be far more successful. Thank you.
Awesome, very cool. So there you're getting the 2 sides of going to your TGE, from the marketing perspective to the legal. Now we're going to go on to the other fun stuff, about the tax side of it. So we're going to have Ben Leave Manderson talk to us a little bit about when you pay attention to
You quickly back up. You just back down your pocket.
Oh, that's exciting. Oh, I'm getting...
It's something that everyone
Cool.
always needs to be aware
Cheers, buddy.
of. You always need to make sure that you're paying attention because HMRC comes around.
Super exciting wireless microphone. Cool. I think this, does this work? Or is this as well? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry everyone. Firstly, an apology because I'm a tax advisor and an accountant, which means you're going to get a double dose of boring for the next 5 minutes. But the thing that I'm going to talk to you today about is obviously tax, and whilst the headline is 2025, not much is really changing in 2025, right? We had the budget. Yes, capital gains tax is going up. That's not very exciting. At least it's not for me anyway. So the 3 things I'm going to break this down into are really structure, tokens, and records. And the theme throughout all of this is really think tax. And I'm sorry if those 2 words have already ruined your Christmas, but sadly this is what I do on a day-to-day basis. So first of all, structure. Okay, right, so you're setting off, I'm going to piggyback on what we've already heard, and all those things James just said then we had to think about. Right, where are we? Where are we based? Where are founders based? What are we doing? What does that structure look like? We see so many projects and so many clients that come to us who have gone and taken the legal advice. That's great. But we've got, in some cases, nearly over 100 years of anti-avoidance tax legislation in the UK. And that will very much cause you to have a very bad Christmas if that goes wrong. Why? Well, you can't just go up and set up a BVI company on your own, right? You might need to have an offshore company for the purposes of issuing a token or something else that we're doing here. But if that goes wrong, that can be subject to income tax on you as an individual, and you'll end up paying 45% on that. That's half of your income gone straight away, right? That's just kind of an example of doing these things together. Don't go and get legal advice without looking at the tax implications as well. Where we have clients that come to us that have taken very good legal advice but haven't considered tax, it's very, very difficult to unwind that. It's much easier to get it correct from the start when you're thinking about what that structure looks like. Hopefully I haven't put the fear of God into you already. Sorry, everyone. As I said, this is going to be very boring and very depressing. 2, tokens. Right, so you might be selling SAFs, you might be allocating tokens to founders, you might be looking at rewarding the team. There are various things that we need to think about there from a tax perspective as well. Where are the team, where are the founders based? When are they getting the allocation? Are they buying the tokens? Are we giving them the tokens? You certainly don't want to be giving tokens post-TGE. or probably after a few investment rounds of SAFTs. Why? Because those tokens then have value. And if you're then giving out tokens, you're creating a huge income tax problem, certainly here in the UK, and I don't doubt various other jurisdictions as well. So not only do we have to think about structure, we have to think about how are we distributing the tokens, where are they going, and at what point in time are we doing that? Because that's really, really important from a tax perspective. And then lastly, and I would say this, sorry, but records. You'd be amazed at the number of people that come to us and go, oh, I think we have to file something. And you go, great, cool, let's have a look at your records. Oh, awesome, 50,000 transactions, what are they? You don't know. Why don't you know? Okay, great, it's all on chain and everything's there, right? And it's been recorded, so that's okay. No, that's not, sadly, okay. We need to make sure that we are keeping records. And yes, this is about tax, so why am I talking about records? Because if you're a business and you're sending people crypto, and that's a legitimate expense, then your needs are going to have some documentation for that. If HMRC did inquire into you, and the inquiries are certainly coming, how can you prove that that is a genuine business expense? Why should they give you a deduction for that? So it's really, really important not only to have the right setup, get the tokens right, but start doing things properly. And there's so many on-chain tools that will help get all of those records and everything down, but it does take that human involvement to make sure that that is correct and that is right. And certainly on an individual level as well, we're a bit slow tax advisors, right? We quite like to wait until after the tax year end and go, give us your tax information, we'll put your tax return together. So much happens so quickly in crypto. Why wait for all of that time for your tax advisor to put everything together? What you need is up-to-date records. You know, Harry mentioned it earlier on about getting your Coinly up to date as being one of your goals for 2025, right? But no jokes. Because if something happens quite quickly, you're going to want to know what those tax implications might be if you did want to sell something right now, rather than going to Coinly and finding that you haven't synced all your wallets, or there's some new exchanges that the APIs aren't connected and you don't really know what's going on, so hey, quick, let's just make a quick disposal. But the tax will follow up on that. So records are really important. So please think tax. Top 3 things to know for crypto tax in 25. Think tax, please, because it's so much harder to get things right after things happen. Sorry for putting the fear of God into you all. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'm sorry for doing tax.
It's super important, and it's something, as Ben was saying, you need to think beforehand to be able to do, rather than trying to retrace yourself back afterwards. And so next up, we're going to have Shimon come and talk a little bit about what it's like to be building with Google. So we get a nice round of applause.
If I could ask you,
Good afternoon, everybody. So I want to talk about 3 quick things today. So the first one is the partnership with GameShift, built on Solana Lab, that allows you to integrate Web3 things into your gaming backend, such as wallets, tokenized assets, and such. Have a look. It's on the blog post. You can easily launch that on the Google Cloud Marketplace if you sign into the console. The second thing is how easy we can deploy your AI into your application with a simple API key. So using Gemini, you can go to Google, type in AI Studio, and get a API key on Vertex Express mode, and then you can start using the large language model by just calling it. Easy, easy. The third thing is you're in the Startup Hub. It's a co-working space. So for those who are not familiar with it, is if you're around, just go to the reception, say you're here for the co-working networking space in level 1, and then you're more than free to use the desks, coffee machines, Wi-Fi, etc. Which leads on to my quick 3.5 point is that Google also has a Web3 credits program, which allows you to get up to $100,000 worth of credit to spend on your cloud costs. So you're using databases, compute engines, and as a startup founder, you don't have a lot of funds to spend on those infrastructure costs. Google will provide you with the credits. Thank you.
Some alpha there, the 100K worth of credits. And yep, you can be able to use up the space in the first floor. It's a cool thing of us being able to start to do event series that we're able to open it up. So if you're in the area before we launch a square, that's really a nice space to go to. Awesome. Now next up, we're going to have Fleur from Serotonin talk to us a little bit about recruiting. because one of the most important things you need to do for your startup is have an amazing team. So, a nice round of applause for Fleur.
Have a little clicker. Oh my God, which ones are yours? The big one. Okay, cool. Cool. I'm like very excited to use a clicker today. Fab. So I put some slides together so you can feel free to take pictures of them, because listening to me will be quite a lot to take on board. There's like a few really important things. So I feel like the market's starting to pick up, which is obviously great, but that does mean that for your recruitment needs, also the market is starting to pick up and candidates will start to get really kind of in demand. So some things to think about. You can teach technical skills, but you can't teach company culture and values. So I used to work at Coinbase, and I think one of the things they did really well was to cement the values from scratch. So we used to have core values, and every single person we used to interview had to go through a values interview. Some ways that you can kind of start building this into your company is outline company values. Think of like 3 to 5 things that really encompass what your company culture is, what's really important to you as a founder, and what every single person you want to bring into your company needs to embody. Build a foundational team of culture carriers. So for example, we did a thing where we had specific people who might have been with the company for a really long time. They interviewed every single person we brought in. And that was a way to make sure as we kind of grew from 10 people to 50 people to 500 people to 5,000 people and all the way through an IPO, we were keeping that really strong culture there. So they can interview every single person, they can ensure the values, and they can ensure it's not just kind of technical skills, etc., but also they are awesome culture carriers. And then employer branding to make your mission really stand out. So align your mission within Web3, transparency, decentralization, remote, flexible culture, etc., and promote strong open source contribution culture. So that can be things like, especially on the technical side, looking for technical talent and advertising that culture around what you do, encouraging them to go to talks and things like that, do events like this, because you want to support them as an employer. The second thing, sorry, these are quite wordy, but it's probably more for my benefit than everyone else's. You're interviewing a candidate, but they're also evaluating you and your company. This is so important coming into next year. So I know a lot of the time I speak to founders and they're like, well, why do they want to work for us? Like, why do you want to work for our company? You should want to work for our company. They should be begging for a job here. That's not going to be the case moving into the really strong market in 2025. You need to be selling your brand and why you should have them versus, I don't know, moving to like a Coinbase, a Google, whoever else it is you're competing with. So moving into a strong market equals candidate-led market. So candidate experience is crucial. Candidates talk, whether it's on Telegram, whether it's in candidate groups, whether it's just like talking to people at events, they'll go, oh, I had a really crappy experience interviewing with whoever it is. You don't want that message to get out into the market, because people won't want to work for you. And I've been there, I've been in these situations, and it's not good. It's really hard to come back from it. So you need to be selling the opportunity to candidates as you go through. So like, oh, hey, great, it's super exciting to meet you. Let me talk to you for 5 minutes about why we're a cool opportunity for you. Let me talk to you about your career development, what you can gain here, what we do to grow, what we do to invest in your education, whatever it might be, conferences, etc. You really want to be selling that opportunity. So they walk away and think, oh my God, I'm desperate to get a job with them. I cannot wait to work for them. I really hope I did well. Timely feedback after interviews is a must. Do not leave people waiting for feedback for like 4 weeks. It's not a good experience. It's not nice. Just think how you would feel if you went for a job that you were really excited about and then no one ever got back to you. It's just not nice. Put yourself in their shoes, and then build your brand. Make it a brand people want to work for. I was actually having a conversation at lunchtime about branding and things like that. Make it a really cool brand. So events, branding, online communities, Telegram channels, whatever it might be, make it a really great place that people think, oh my God, I love that chat that people are in, or I've seen like, I don't know, Katie at an event and I really want to work with her, whoever it might be. Sorry to pick on you, Katie, I just saw you at the back. But make it these kind of things, and then people will really want to work for you, and then you'll get the applications coming in, and it means less work for you, really good brand out into the market. Targeting the right place for talent. And this is very specific to Web3. So LinkedIn, standard jobs boards, they won't suffice. So online communities are essential. I'm sure we've all got the Discords, the Telegrams, crypto-specific job boards. Events are also a great way to market your brand, whether that's getting like a stand at an event, just having people come wear t-shirts, whatever it might be. Freelance platforms for technical talents, offering hackathons, things like that. Really get the message out there about like it being a great place to work. They get to meet other developers, whoever it might be. And it's kind of like a really organic way of hiring people. referrals are your best friend. Again, a conversation I was having at lunchtime. If you're hiring A players, they will hire A players. If you start to hire B players, they'll hire C players. If you hire C players, they'll hire D players. And it'll gradually kind of bring your technical or your talent in general down. So look for those referrals. When you're bringing people in, be like, hey, who do you know that's great that worked for you? Tell me the top 5 compliance people that, you know, we'd love to bring into this company, whoever it might be. And you'll find that they have really strong networks of people. And that's a great quick win for you. Visibility. Do you have a strong LinkedIn page? Do you have open roles on Telegram, Discord communities? Are your founders talking at events like this? Like, do you have people up on stage being like, hey, we're hiring, we're looking for XYZ roles, things like that? It's such an organic way to get the message out there, but it really helps in building your teams. And then I know this is maybe illegal because it was meant to be 3, so here's some bonus points. Don't hire super senior talent if you don't have people to execute on the work. What is the point in having a CTO, a CMO, whoever it might be, and they don't want to do it? I come across these people all the time. They're like, I've moved away from that now. I don't want to be hands-on. That's not helpful. You're paying them 200-300K and they don't want to do the work. Hire doers. Those people are going to be the culture carriers, to link to the first point, that you hire, and then they're going to hire people underneath them. It's going to be career opportunities for them. They get to move into management roles. That's a great story for you to tell. There's countless things that I can say on this topic, but hire doers, they can grow with your company. They're not going to leave you because they're not going to be like, oh, so-and-so's offered me 500K, so I'm going to move to them. They really see the value of your brand and what you're building. Roles that will be in high demand. Marketing. I already know this. I'm hiring tons of marketers. If you're a marketer and you're looking for another job, please come find me. I am struggling to find great marketers for some of my clients. Web3 marketers are in hot demand. Community builders. People who do comms, all of that kind of thing, specifically in Web3, who have been through that building stage, they're in high demand. Rust engineers, it's always some kind of emerging tech. Year on year, it slightly changes, but Rust engineers at the moment are in high demand. Protocol engineers, hard to find. So those are just highlighting some of them. Please don't lowball offers. I get this all the time from founders. I know you can be really conscious of your funding and you don't want to spend loads of money on stuff. But if you're saying to a candidate like, hey, I'm going to offer you 50K, but I do want you to work 12-hour days, 5 days a week, and do all of these extra things, they're going to go and find a job that really values them, or they're going to join you, and in 4 weeks, they're going to get offered what they really deserve. They're going to leave you. It's a whole waste of money. So do not lowball them, otherwise you'll get a whole reputation in the market for being like, they don't pay very well, they lowball you, they're just trying to like get people in the door, etc. It's not going to be good. Make them feel valued, and then remote is a winner. It opens your candidate pool to open awesome global talent. So whether you're hiring people in the US, the UK, people want to work everywhere. We've just had DevCon, everyone was working from there. Some people were lucky enough to go to Bali and work after. Like, they don't need to come back to the office in London to work. So let them be remote, let them work anywhere, opens your talent pool. And that is it.
Awesome. Very cool. So important. Make sure you're looking after your team. And next up, we have Michael from Foundation Ventures to talk to us about partnerships. Big round of applause.
Okay. So, first of all, I need to read the room. Who here is a founder? Okay, so let's start with the first thing about partnerships. My favorite thing about partnerships is a simple saying. This simple saying goes, seek to understand before you seek to be understood. I'm going to break that down again. Seek to understand before you seek to be understood. What does that actually mean? It means try and listen because you've been given 2 ears and 1 mouth. So whenever you're having a conversation with someone that you want to make a partner or someone that you admire, just try and listen more than you speak. Why? Because everybody loves to hear their own voice. I'm a great example right now. So that's what you got to do, number 1. Always try and listen to what other people are saying. Now, number 2. Number 2 is you don't know what you don't know until you know. Now, this comes across in multiple areas. The first area where you don't know what you don't know until you know is the most dangerous one, actually. You don't know who you're sitting next to. Every event you ever go to, speak to the person sitting next to you. Simply because you don't know who they are, you don't know who they're going to become, and you don't know who's in their network. Some of the greatest partnerships that I've ever had in my life have come literally from sitting next to somebody and speaking to them and saying, oh, hey, you're sitting next to me. It's a rule that I have. I always talk to the person sitting next to me. Whether you're on a plane, train, whatever it is, just speak to the person next to you. Just compliment them on something simple. I like your bonk advisory cap. Something like, oh, you know what? I like your cool hoodie. I'm just really interested in like what you think of this weather because it's really annoying me. Just make some small talk and turn it into a conversation. Now, in terms of you don't know what you don't know until you know, Web3 is the ultimate space where you might not actually know as much as you think you know. So don't ever think you're an expert in this space. Because if you think you're an expert in Web3 and you tell someone, oh yeah, I'm an expert in Web3, I know all about ZK rollups and arbitrage, guess what? It might mean that you might not know that much about NFTs. You might not know that much about gaming. You might have a specialist area where you think you know a lot, but you might not know everything. And at the end of the day, anyone that's coming to listen to you probably doesn't want to hear all about your life story and everything that you know. So I'm going to wrap this up because I don't want to be the ironic guy that's telling you everything about what I know. And I'm going to go on to the third one. Now, the third and most important part of partnerships, does anyone know what it is? Anyone want to take a guess? Trust is close, but it's actually what I just did. It's to ask questions. It's just simply ask questions. Ask questions about what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you need? What is it that you're struggling with in your business? How can I help you? What are your KPIs? What are your objectives for the year? Once you've found this information, even if you can't deliver, find someone in your network that can. Because now guess what happens? If you're now messaging that person in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time, and who knows, they might have got married to the King of Thailand. Who knows, they might now be a player for Manchester United. You never know who someone's going to become or who someone in their network is going to become. But because you offered the ability to offer value to them, they're now going to actually probably respond to your messages. Rather than being that person that's just spamming and going, oh yeah, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, buy this off me, buy this off me. So that's pretty much my talk on partnerships. Thank you for listening.
So important. Web3 is a collaborative space. So if we work together, we can make a dream work. Now next up, we have Tom from Flight to talk to us about marketing. Big round of applause. It's something where you see a lot of brands at the moment not knowing, as Flo was saying, Web3 marketers are so important. So give us the source.
Awesome stuff. Cheers. Hey guys, I'm Tom. And yeah, decided to break it down into 3 pretty simple lessons, but I think they are probably some of the most important areas to focus on, particularly as a founder. For context, I've worked with founders for the past 5-6 years. These are probably some of the areas where I think they can improve on the most, and in terms of what you guys can do moving forwards, hopefully it should make some decent impact. So, first one, finding your voice. Personality always wins over brand, and I think the prime example of this is probably Elon. When you think about Elon, compared to Tesla, you're probably going to see one pop up more on your timeline than the other. And this is something you want to start sooner rather than later. One of the reasons for this is that the more you put out there into the world, hopefully the more feedback you get, whether that's positive, negative, it's all data. And when it comes to marketing, that's one of the most important things. In terms of other things, yeah, I mean, crypto lives on Twitter, right? Or X, whatever you want to call it. Just being able to sort of showcase what you're doing is going to encourage so many more folks to buy into the project, particularly in the early days, right? Your brand is probably something no one's ever heard of before, something they probably don't even care about that much. But if you can sort of humanize it with your own voice, showcasing the journey you're on, and I guess kind of behind the scenes as well, it can inspire those, you know, who may be interested to actually join your community, whatever it may be. If we look at some of the examples from this space, these are probably 3 of the most recognizable folks right now. Obviously, you got Luca. When you see him, you think of him being the retail guy, Sailor being the Bitcoin guy, and obviously you got Jesse doing amazing work as a builder for the base ecosystem. All 3 of these folks sort of lead their missions with their own personal Twitter and putting stuff out into the world, whether it's through podcasts, talks, you know, threads on Twitter, whatever it may be. They're all fantastic communicators, and as founders, that's one of the most important things you can be doing, is leveraging your thoughts, your ideas, and, well, most importantly, opinions, put them out there into the world and getting that feedback. Lesson 2 sort of carries on from some of the stuff we've discussed on communities already, but another area I see most founders struggling with is looking to scale the communities. So there's this thing called the evaporative cooling effect, and I want all founders to keep this in mind. In the early days, it may not be so much of an issue, but as you grow and look to sort of push your push your brand, push your protocol, whatever it may be, out into the world, looking to scale your community in the right way is one of the most important things. Obviously, marketing is all about awareness. You want more people to join in, get involved, testing your product, using it, whatever it may be. The evaporative cooling effect is basically this idea whereby in the early days, you have a core community. They've joined because they've seen alignment. They may have seen your tweets, they may have joined your Discord, they may have joined your Telegram, and they've started to engage with you. And they have that alignment with whatever you're offering them. Obviously, as a founder, you're looking to grow this and looking to scale it. This comes with the challenge because more people are going to want to join this community, they see what's going on, and they want to be a part of it. But those original core folks that have joined may see themselves as slightly different to those that are joining slightly later. So an example of this is like the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Obviously, in the early days, seemed like the flashiest thing in town. It actually started as a group of, I guess, entrepreneurs joining this community because they saw the value in finding like-minded individuals looking to build ventures, leveraging the brand, that sort of thing. Where it went wrong was that they looked to scale too quickly, too aggressively, and they didn't keep this principle in mind. So you had these core entrepreneurs at the start. Obviously, there's the NFTs that came out, then there's the follow-on sales. That attracted further people to sort of look at the Bored Ape Yacht Club to be a part of it. But of course, those folks that were joining later down the line were joining because they saw it as an opportunity, right? In terms of the NFTs were buzzing, they wanted to look to sort of capitalize on that. So those original folks you had as those entrepreneurs, the pioneers looking to sort of build ecosystem together, started to become disillusioned because you had more and more people looking to move into the space as opportunists rather than builders. And so what that meant, you had more of these opportunists join in and diluting that core pool of entrepreneurs. And over time, obviously, it got to the point whereby there's the majority of these people looking to make a quick buck rather than actually build stuff. And so there are several ways you can sort of manage this particular effect. So obviously you've got social gating. You can look to put in particular measures which enforce norms or particular aspects whereby you can sort of ensure that everyone that is joining for the right reason and there is that alignment. Part of that will be helping to foster a common language so people can communicate about these ideas in the same way. Of course, status is a massive driver for people, and as marketeers, we look to find ways where we can leverage that, whether it's ambassador programs and helping those community members feel like they are a part of this ecosystem, project, whatever it may be. And I guess a core point here, which really speaks to the cooling effect, is defining your plazas and warrants. So your plazas will be your open forums where everybody can participate and speak that common language. But you might want these warrants as well, which are slightly more private spaces whereby your technical folks, whatever it may be, can have those technical discussions and it won't disrupt the overall community, or it could be your opportunists who want to talk about maybe the financial aspects. They can have their own place to do that, but it won't disrupt the overall mission or whatever it may be. The final point here is we never see enough testing. A lot of people just make assumptions, and unfortunately, that always leads to things not going quite right. So as marketers, the most important thing we see here is basically testing, right? The sooner you start, the better. It speaks to that first point, which is, I guess, identifying, who do you need to be speaking to and how do you want to communicate with them? So embrace data-driven testing. Every action you do in marketing, you want to be looking to collect some sort of data, whether it's qualitative, quantitative, it doesn't matter. It can all improve the way you do things moving forwards. Personalization, really important. A lot of people just shout into the ether, whether that's Twitter, Discord, you name it. Sure, you're gonna get some hits and get some folks resonating with that. By the end of the day, you want to be identifying your core audiences and speaking to them directly. They'll give you the most useful feedback. And at the same time, your marketing is probably going to be more effective there. And it all comes down to iterating and optimizing, right? So this is not a one-off event. You don't just do one test and that'll be it. Throughout your project lifecycle, you should be constantly testing this. So speaking to your users on a regular basis, whatever sort of user feedback loops you can create, the better and the more impactful your marketing will be. So happy to chat about this afterwards. Quick crash course. Thank you very much.
Very awesome. All right, and we're gonna have our final one. So, this is gonna be Alex Hall from Bonk Advisory. Tell us the 3 things we need to know about being a founder in Web3. So it's something that I hope is going to be a nice little takeaway for everybody. Give you a couple of final little tips, and then afterwards we can head to the square for a bit of co-working. So Alex, take it away. Big round of applause.
So my job is to keep everyone awake for 5 more minutes before we go somewhere else for more fun. Is that right? Okay, let's see where we go. All right, so at Bonk Advisory, we spend an awful lot of time thinking much more about the long term of companies in a space where people think very, very short term. And you know, case in point, I think every minute you've got a new meta turning up in crypto, which is incredibly distracting. So my 3 points today are all takeaways related to that. The first is, it's really simple, it's mostly for founders, but it does apply to everybody doing whatever they happen to do in the world, and that's focus. And focus during crypto cycle madness is a particularly a key point. I think if you're on Twitter, as I think we've just acknowledged everyone is on Twitter, all you're seeing is price going up crazy, price go down crazy. Here's the only thing that people the investors are investing in now. 10 minutes later, they're investing in another thing. And so we're finding a lot that the companies we're working with are considering changing the way they position their product. They're considering changing their primary product. They're thinking about a completely different angle when it comes to whether they need fundraising, whether they don't need fundraising. And the message that we try to give everybody is like, what was your vision before things got crazy? Is there any reason why it should need to change right now because everyone's talking about something else? Because guess what? In 10 minutes, they'll be talking about something else. So number 1 is focus. Number 2, we've touched on this already with a previous speaker, but know your core values. Again, in the frenzy of the people whirling into your life from a potential partnership standpoint, from a potential investor standpoint, investor, client, whoever it happens to be, employees, everyone's got something to offer, especially when the number goes up, right? So can you always take a step back and look at the big picture again, which is what are your core values? If you're working by yourself, I think that can sometimes be a little bit harder, but for instance, with Kieran and I, we spent 2 years getting to know each other, and it was really, really easy on day 1 when we formed Bonk Advisory to go, well, what are the things that will never, ever change, right? And they were always going to be things like, we will always be absolutely honest with each other and with clients. We'll be, totally, I've just forgotten what our core values are. Hang on, let's go back to that. It's always been one of my issues. Accountability, when you've basically fucked up, are you going to put your hand up and say it straight away? Always do what you say you're going to do, because I think in this space in particular, you meet a lot of people that promise the world and deliver absolutely nothing, right? So when you do, for me, that's been my number 1 in building businesses over 20 years. When I meet people that say they're going to do something and do it, it's like, okay, well, this is probably worth a second conversation, right? And there is nothing worse. Think about, or do you want to have a think about somebody in your world in the last 6 months who has not only promised you something they didn't deliver, but you didn't even ask them for it. They proactively offered you a thing that you weren't asking for, and then they still didn't deliver on it. And think about how that made you feel, right? So the people you surround yourself with and the values you live by will stand the test of time. And number 3, understand your audience and ask yourself why they should care, right? So this goes a lot from a customization standpoint, but at a high level, the number of businesses we speak to who want to be a direct-to-consumer business but should be a B2B business, for instance, I'd say somehow it's almost 50% of the businesses we end up speaking to. And they end up trying to pitch to both markets, which, by the way, ends up being everybody. So you're trying to pitch to everybody, which ends up being a massive problem from a communication standpoint. And it's really, really unfocused. At the same time, who are your clients? What is the subsegment of the population or of crypto users or of banking users? What exactly does that demographic look like? And guess what? What kind of language are they going to need? Because it's probably not the same language you're using with your investors. It's probably not the same language you're using with your business partners. It's probably not the same language you're using with your employees, right? So that customization, again, last talk, I think, was that customization is so important, because if I make one connection with one person, that's probably a connection that can last for life, as distinct from, I think, the broad brush kind of marketing. And I think it's very tempting to go, what can I reuse? I'm just going to use this one deck to communicate with everybody. The reality is it's always worth putting the extra hours in and understanding that there's going to be a message that your investor gets that your core user doesn't get. And you have to put the time into understanding who that individual happens to be. So those are my 3 takeaways. They're not going to necessarily make everyone $1 billion overnight, but they are things that will stand the test of time regardless of what your business is. So we've got focus during the crypto cycle craziness, know your core values, and understand your audience, and increasingly ask probably every day why they should give a shit about what you're telling them. Thank you.
Beautiful. Awesome. So, these have been our rapid fire talks. This has been our little day accelerator. I appreciate everyone for being able to come and join us here today. The legal playbook that was mentioned earlier on will be available at uk.superteam.fun. So that's going to be the very first ever time that you're seeing almost like a public free good telling you everything you need to know about it. It's awesome, and I hope you're all going to be able to enjoy reading that. We're going to have all of the videos and the slides emailed to you later on, so you're going to make sure to get all of the little nuggets of information still with you. And now we get to go ahead and go into the square, and I want to leave you with this one little quote that I've been saying from the very first community call that we have with Super Team, but I love it. It's from Steve Jobs, and it talks about how if you look around, everything you can see in this world was made up by people no smarter than you, and so you have the ability to change it. And especially as founders, you are changing the world in your specific domain. And so feel empowered, feel excited, and let's go on to 2025 and make a difference in the world. Thank you all for coming. Let's go to the square.